Alright, so today we're going to take a look at sensors, in this case a light sensor. And what I've put up in front of you here on the snap screen is a series of code blocks that we'll just sort of break down as we go through this. Now notice that I made it on when green flag clicked. And by the way, if you are in stop mode, all your code looks normal, and the minute you click green flag and something gets activated, you'll see this little halo come around any bit of code that is currently active. And because we've put this hat block that says when green flag clicked above, everything below that gets activated. So let's take a look at this. And I'm going to actually bring up the video so that you can also kind of see what's going on here. So what's happening is I've got a tricolor LED on port 1. And it is set to be certain colors at certain times. So I'm going to break this code down here. The first thing we have is we're telling the Hummingbird to give us the light value. So this particular sensor is the light sensor, which is the one you see on the screen, on port 1. And we're telling it to say the value of that light right here. So this is a very simple way of testing out what light values look like. So if I take the flashlight and I put it next to the light sensor, you'll see that the sensor's number on the screen is going up and down depending on how close that light source is. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an if statement that says whenever the light source is less than 20, do this. Otherwise, do that. And the way I put this together is I grabbed the if statement from the controls. I grabbed actually an if else. I grabbed an operator. There are many different types of operators. This one just says if something is less than something else, do this. Otherwise, do that. And then I went to sensors and I went and grabbed the Hummingbird light sensor, and I put it in the first box, which is right there. Notice when I'm hovering over these, that little white preview gives me an idea of where it's going to go. So I'm going to put it in this one. And if you were using a dial sensor, then you would just switch this to dial. In this case, it's a light sensor, so I'm using a light. It is on my port 1. And I just picked a number 20 because I tested out sort of how bright 20 would be and what kind of reaction I could get from that level of light. So you can test out what these numbers are in your room, in your ambient situation, to see environmentally what level of light you need to make something change. All right, and in this case, I just put 20. And then I went and grabbed the tricolor LED lights. And so I went to go to looks, and I grabbed the tricolor. And then I just gave it some values, and you can see them up here. So if the light is lower than 20, then the value is going to be of the Hummingbird at 20% blue, meaning 20% brightness of blue. Otherwise, if it gets brighter, it's going to flash between green and red. So let's just test this out. All right, so as the light source comes close, notice also on the screen that the value number on the stage is going up, and then the light's flashing back and forth. So keep this in mind when doing any kind of sensor work, because really you can put whatever you want inside these if-else statements, including making a motor run or making a light flash. Okay, and you can put multiple statements like this with different values that all get based on what happens with the light sensor. If you had more than one sensor hooked up, you could do one movement or light statement based on a light sensor and a totally different one based on, let's say, a dial sensor or a distance sensor, depending on what you had in your inventory. Okay, that's a very simple example of using a sensor to create light.